TRU-Man Podcast, where we come to motivate men and see you succeed. We're going to give you hard-hitting topics with great insight. Let's go! Advancing the cause. Building strong minds. Energy for the soul. Let's go! Keen perspectives. Creative conversations. Building coalitions. Let's go! Streaming with a purpose. Exploring deeper knowledge. Getting inspired. Let's go! Talking with dignity. Building our respect. Airing it out. TRU-Man Podcast. Men, let's go! TRU-Man Podcast. Like, share, subscribe. Let's go, nation. We gotta talk. It's election day morning, 2022. There was a full lunar eclipse this morning, and the temperature has dropped by over 30 degrees in 2 days. But I'm only interested in talking about the election today. I like to think that I'm a regular guy with an ordinary past. But every now and then, I get these flashes of what I think are brilliant insights. And the way that I bring thoughts together is unique. Not out of reach for regular people, but just unique to my way of thinking. So, we're going to discuss this emerging election cycle with the commencement of the 2022 midterms this voting day. I really did not want of my newbie vids to be on a political topic. I can't yet let the moment pass without adding my voice in the present. I have to say that I have a position of public trust in government. So, I offer my observations and opinions on matters of public interest to my viewers. In these comments that I make, I don't offer my personal support for any particular political candidate or political party or office. My commentary is for entertainment and education purposes, mainly. There is definitely a political shift going on, though. Let's talk about it. I wouldn't say it's a sea change, or maybe it is, but we're seeing the waves of our political rivers roll a little bit higher and a little bit harder than they have in the past, and in some pretty dynamic ways. We know all the political groups that impact elections: the party line, the business class, the working class, the poor, the rich, urban, rural, by race and gender/sexual orientation, and of course, by location, geography, depending on where people live in the country, and on and on and on, right? But as this is Ray Black of TRU-Man Podcast, let's talk about one category of voting bloc that could be easily ignored, and may I suggest has been in the past, and that is black men. Stay with me. If you do, I'll show you that we're in a unique political season. That's my projection, and I'm focused on black men as a voting bloc at this time because I'm a part of this voting bloc. And I can see the winds of change blowing in for us politically. By no means are black men a monolith? And we don't stand alone as a voting bloc. We have political partners, for sure. We're actually subsets of larger voting blocs. But we as black men exist in this country together, playing on the same political battlefield, a field that's starting to recognize the emergence of our greater influence and the greater influence of our vote, and what impact that influence will have on elections, with the backdrop of what was and still is in many ways limited representation for black men in politics. First, let me say, I believe in coalition building with as many people and groups as possible, as long as the trade-offs are successful, and the trade-offs will bring tangible political results. But political coalitions are built from bases of power, and as a group, black men has only had teapots of political power. I think we're entering an age where black men could grow into a 10-quart pot of political power instead of a teapot. I'm also not an oppression Olympics type of person. I do recognize that there are conditions specific to the black male voting bloc that are changing. There is a political pattern shift, a small section of, if you will, which may be a sea change for black men. For example, PewResearch.org says black voters can play an important role in determining the outcome of key 2022 midterm races in the United States in November, which is today. Notably, black Americans in Georgia account for a third of eligible voters and will cast ballots today in a closely followed race that could determine which party controls the U.S. Senate next year. That's power. But the remnants that make up that political power base are changing. Let me explain. What's happening in Georgia? Mr. Brian Kemp and Ms. Stacy Abrams are battling for governor, and political polls have Mr. Kemp ahead by as much as 10 percentage points above Ms. Abrams. That's not alarming, but what is alarming is the attention for some in the Georgia race has tuned mysteriously on the voting predilections of who? Black men. You're right. Ms. Stacy Abrams addressed this cup of concern over the voting patterns of black men directly in political speeches and appearances. And she even added a page in the constituent area on her website specifically addressing black men's concerns. At the top of that constituent list, on the top of that particular page, and you can find it at stacyabrams.com, it says that black men deserve leadership that sees them, serves them, and believes in them. Okay, I like that. It says more, but isn't that interesting? On the other hand, even one day before the election, Ms. Abrams declared that black men have been a targeted group for misinformation. Let's not lose sight of the fact that they never, or people have never defined what the misinformation is. It's not defined. What misinformation? With all due respect, Ms. Abrams, you may be missing reading the room in the correct way. Putting it as nice as I can. It seems that people who don't want to take stock of the fact that the political equation is shifting toward empowering black men are going to hold the line until there's no more rope and there are many election losses. Ms. Abrams may just look back on this day, and I'm not saying that she will lose, but she may regret not taking a more encouraging tone if she loses. I will repeat that popular refrain that power conceives nothing without a demand. I get that. Nonetheless, I can't remember any time in our political history that candidates have been focused on addressing the black male voting bloc so directly. But remember, there is a shift going on, right? I don't know how any election will turn out. I can't predict that. But I do know that the country is watching with sharp focus to see how black men will vote in this election cycle. And if a notable change exists, expect to see a different handling of black men as a political force going forward. You watch. This is an exciting precipice, especially if black men we convert on this moment and portal of opportunity in history, and I think we will. It's an exciting moment. This year and going forward, it will turn out to be a political turning point for black men. Let's talk about where I'm from in New York. In New York, black men make up less than 7% of the electorate. So any shift up to full mobilization doesn't hold huge shifts in the electorate in New York. But a few percentage point shifts in any one election is huge by any calculation. And mobilized people win elections. And that's why people are starting to pay new attention to black male voters across the country. Where the margins for victory are thin for any candidate, and where there's a city with a sizable number of black male voters, this can be a part of the 2022 election DNA that we should watch. In a minute, we're going to look at this through the lens of science. Ooh, that's going to be an interesting conversation. Let's talk about it. First, let me tell you a story. There was a special election in my district earlier this year, in August, I believe. And I went to the polling place to vote early in the morning. But not before I went for a 3-mile run. I had set it so that the end point of the 3-mile run marker was the polling place. I arrived to the school cafeteria polling place, dripping with sweat, but energized. I had a towel. I went to the table where the election worker was sitting, wiped my face, gave her my name. She looked a little bedazzled, but I didn't pay much attention because I was sweating, and it was apparent from my gear that I just come from a run, workout gear, sneakers, water bottle. Nonetheless, this was my second time voting at this particular polling place because I was relatively new to this particular district. So I wasn't worried about being able to vote. Been there before until, yes, the lady came back and said she could not find my name on the voting block. I told her which election district I was in and assured her I had voted there before and that my name should be on the logs. What happened? I didn't prevail. She directed me to fill out a ballot by hand. I was pissed. Maybe this is okay if somehow my name had been accidentally removed from the rolls that day. But my spidey sense told me, no, sir, that's not what actually happened. Stay with me. I filled out the hand ballot with some gut-wrenching and placed it in the envelope. Handed it back. I really felt robbed of a basic right. In that moment, I knew what it felt like to be denied the right to vote. Although I know technically that's not what happened. I get it, but that's what it felt like. I wasn't particularly concerned because I planned to get to the bottom of what happened and determine if my name was in fact removed from the rolls or not. Lo and behold, I found out that my name was not removed from the rolls. And it could not have been more clear that I was registered in that district. I was in the right polling place because less than a week later, I received that 4x8 election card from the County Board of Elections reminding me that I was a fully registered voter in that election district /town/county and county board with the exact polling place I went to with the clearly correct name and address. I was suckered. I'm gonna pull this together with the science in a minute. Pull it together. Watch. Do I think there was some mix-up at the polling place I went to? Not really. I really don't think that was the case. I think that at that moment, when the poll worker couldn't find my name in the voting book, there was a moment where the political tension of the moment caused an eclipse of process. See, poll workers are just regular people with sensibilities like you and me. And some are very casual about the dedication they bring to doing the job right. They're casual about it. I know that tension when I run up on it. And in this instance, the poll worker was not invested in making sure the voting process worked how it was supposed to work for me at that moment. That's all I can judge on. I can't say anything more about the poll worker personally because I don't know her beyond that moment. But in that moment, I know that it was soured by something I had no control over. It was the political tension of the moment. And here we are on election day, the morning, 2022, with the political tension of the moment. Here's the question. Is the K constant in the black voting bloc softening due to the changing voting patterns of the men in the voting bloc? Said another way, are black men changing the game of black politics and election cycles in this country? Can we? Are we on the verge of finding a new political Wakanda? Is the K constant being changed? Okay. What is the K constant? I know I'm introducing things. I'm glad you asked. Let's talk. Here's the science. Do y'all remember physics class? There's a law, I looked it up again, called Coulomb's law. I probably can't go too deep into it, but let's talk about it. What is Coulomb's law? According to Wikipedia, who in this case, they had a pretty good description of Coulomb's law. Coulomb's law is a law in physics that explains the relationship of the amount of force between two stationary objects, electrically charged objects, right? The force between them. That force is a straight line joining the two charges from the two objects. Stay with me. If the charges have the same sign, the static force between them repels. If they have different signs, the force between them attracts, right? In other words, like charges repel each other and opposite charges mutually attract. This is the basis for electromagnetism, right? Certainly, we have all held two magnets inches apart and recognized the magnetic pull, and then flipped one magnet over to recognize they repelled each other. Static force. This attracting and repelling force is reminiscent of what's happening in the black voting bloc. Stay with me. There have been different charges of static force for a long time. The men have politically been fighting for the betterment of the whole voting bloc, a sort of universal advancement mind state. But the other element in the voting bloc has for some time been vying for its own group dynamic voting and political power. This is no slight on black women. They are partners in the struggle, but it's only the recognition of a political reality that has been growing for some time. The women in the black voting bloc, they've benefited from the men holding their charge as a constant while allowing women to pursue a charge that mostly benefited them as women and not so much the universal advancement of the group. But that is changing. Black men are now beginning to show flashes of turning into a light charge. We are beginning to mirror the political aspirations the women have shown and pursue political ends that serve the benefits of black men in particular, which, remember, repels, it can, and this is the catalyst for exposing the political tension in the black voting bloc. To be sure, having like charges in the example of the black voting bloc is reminiscent of each component of the voting bloc vying for power in its own right. That's the like charge. Y'all see where I'm going? We're flipping. Flip the coin, Max. Fading are the days when black women will entirely be able to use black men as a kind of springboard into their own political power. You know, like charges are every man and woman for themselves, or every group of people pursuing their own ends. Black men are starting to realize that we have to respect the physics of Coulomb's law and operate politically in a way that serves our political interests as a group. The reality is that en masse, black men serve universal interests anyway. So gaining some political power is not really a threat to anyone. It's a preservation power move for black men. In Coulomb's law, there's something called the Coulomb constant. And that's where I get the K constant question from. What is the constant? Without getting too deep, it's the electric force between charged bodies at rest. Black men have been charged bodies at rest politically in a lot of ways, but that's changing. Pulling it all together, black men have been the K constant in the black political voting bloc. We have maintained harmony in the political force that is the black political base. In my example, with the lady at the polling place who couldn't find my name on the voting rolls, she was responding to my force, the static force, that mine was no longer at rest. No longer was there this straight line joining our two charges. My charge shifted. My K constant shifted, and she could sense it. So she could not find herself to find my name on the rolls. That's how I see it. Do I know this absolutely? No, I couldn't. But do I believe that's what happened? Yes, you know it. So what do we have here? It's my belief that across the country today and over the next few years going forward, we will witness the shifting of the black male electorate and the disruption in the electrostatic force of the black voting bloc, baby. That K constant will change, baby, just like it has for me and my voting experience. You know what I also noticed? I noticed that historically, the focus was tilted more towards accepting black men as political candidates and pawns, and less of a push toward developing us as an independent voting bloc. To be fair, historically, all women, black women included, were disenfranchised from voting for longer and with even less focus on their political development. But that's flipped in the last 50 years. And like a graph where two lines are traveling along the same plane, the political life of women/black women started to take off. And the political life of black men remained, you guessed it, K constant. Black men have been the K constant of the black political universe. Two things will need to happen in order for the black male vote to convert from being K constant into political electrostatic force. One, black male independent political thought must be inspired, and black male voter turnout has to be ramped up across the country. Two, independently thinking black male voters must increase by 5 or more percentage points. Then black men will start to become more of a political force to be reckoned with and play for future election cycles. This will signal a movement and political shift that we haven't seen in black American politics since the turn of the 20th century. Let's end it on this. There's significant political tension in 2022 around how black men will utilize their vote. I find it quite interesting how that it seems that politicians who want to court the black male vote will do it hesitantly and also as if to make sure they don't piss off the bread and butter of their political support base, whoever they may be. politicians will come up to the door of the political room where black men are, so to speak, and implore us to come out of the room and talk to them. Not the other way around. I'm aware of the political reality that power concedes nothing without a demand. And so anybody who wants a politician's attention or candidates for political office's attention and wants them to wield power on their behalf better be ready to show why that politician should wield their political power for that person's benefit. I get it. The way that we as black men need to operate now in this political environment is to make sure we actualize and bring forth the change afoot to make the black male voting bloc compelling and relevant to local and national elections, and to take advantage of this political shift. For black men, it will be like grabbing a straw in the wind. I encourage black men to become independent political thinkers more and more so, and vote our interests more and more so. But yes, go and vote for power. Your power, our power. I'm your host, Ray Black, with TRU-Man Podcast. Maximize the moment. Let's go.